Good morning, everybody. Ed the Pond Professor here, back in Frankfort with Brent. We had a really good start to the project. A few setbacks, obviously. We had snow, wet, muddy conditions, but we got a ton done. We're working on that intake bay. So what we're doing right now, we got our aqua blocks in place. We got our crushed gravel going around the aqua blocks. Now what we're doing is we're starting to set all that rock in place. Let's go take a look. So this is a little different application than a liner type of a system. As we know, we're doing it on top of an earthen bottom pond. Similar concepts, but we have a little bit different methods of construction. We got our fabric in place. We have our large 1.5 to 2 inch rock. We've totally set these. They're all nice and level. Everything is square. We got those in the right position. Now what we're doing is we're filling that area because we overdug that entire space. And that's just because of the clay as well as the size of the bucket that we had. Now what we're doing is we're bringing all that material right up according to that ledge. You see that little ledge right there? We're going to bring all the gravel up to that. That's going to set our elevation, and then we're going to set our large aqua blocks, and we're going to transition to the smaller ones for that large catchment area. Okay, aqua blocks are going in. You can see we have our pump vaults in place. We still have to put a couple more risers on there to get to the appropriate elevation, but right now we're in good shape. What we're doing is we're leveling out this surface here in the front. We're going to continue going with our small aqua blocks to extend that catchment area out, and at the same time we're going to be backfilling all the way around the perimeter with more of this crushed stone to lock everything into place. And then once we have that set, we're going to come in and we're going to start doing our stonework. So we'll start setting all of that stone, and then we'll start terracing our way up and out. Once we get all of that dry work done on the inside, we'll pump water from the pond, and then we'll dig this section out in between. And what that will do is that's going to make the connection between the intake bay to the pond itself. So remember, this water level is going to be flush going all the way through here. So that whole thing is basically a huge pre-filter. It's going to do a really, really good job here for our customer. Aqua blocks are in. We're going around the perimeter and we're backfilling everything to lock everything in place. You can see we already have this section completed. We have just set up a pump inside of the big pond. We're taking water from the pond. We're filling up our reservoir just to make sure that everything holds where we want it to. But also it's going to help put pressure and everything on it. Once we get this full of water, we're going to start doing our stonework around the outside perimeter. Those big outcropping stones, these ones, we're going to backfill behind them with more of that crushed stone. Once we get all that done, we're going to cover the top with our large river rock. We will then open this section up, allowing all that water to connect from the pond into our intake bay. So here's our progress. We are moving along. Setting these rocks goes really, really quick, especially when we have nice flat rock to work with as well as flat aqua blocks. So all that's coming together really, really fast. Our only challenge right now, obviously mud still, but we have other contractors on site. So concrete truck is sitting right in front of everything. They got to get their job done, so we understand, but all of our rocks are right over there, so we got to get all that stuff moved. So it's just a big shuffling game at this point. So what we're trying to do here from an aesthetic standpoint as well as functional, we're coming in, we're going to start layering in all this rock. We're going to start backfilling it with more of the crushed stone. That's going to give us a really, really solid structure to work with. But we also want to have a big catchment area. So this obviously just being a big square rectangle from an aesthetic standpoint looks bad. We want something that's going to look more natural, more curvy, something that you find in nature. So this is going to come across this way, then it's going to taper its way back over towards the pond over here. On top of these aqua blocks, we're going to come in with our drainage panels. Purpose of those is to give us a three-dimensional drainage structure on top of this. It will also increase the load-bearing capacity, but what it will do is we're going to set those panels in place, and during the routine maintenance, you can come in and remove all of those panels and you could power wash them. So this is something that could be done on a yearly basis to make sure that the water quality is going to be great. And remember, this is a pre-filter. There is maintenance associated with it. So once this is operational, any debris, leaves, lawn clippings, plant material, mulch, whatever is floating on the surface of this pond is going to get sucked into this catchment area. So we want to manage that. We want to maintain it. That's going to give them better water quality. It's also going to protect the life of our pumps for the long term. got a busy afternoon here. We are making really good progress here on doing all of our stonework. We're coming in, with our gravel backfill. Our big challenge obviously is just logistics, like always on a project. We got the guys doing the brick over here. We got guys doing patios, pouring concrete, electricians, you name it, cutting stone. We got to do is reshuffle everything so we can get in on this side, start filling this. Once we get that done, we're gonna wanna come in over on this side, and I wanna peel back all of this extra soil over in here. This is all overburdened. We really don't need it. We'll come in here with a series of terraces, which will look a lot better. So that's what we're getting ready for. We're gonna start moving some of the pallets, making access, finish filling behind all of that stuff with gravel. Then we'll start digging, pulling all that material back, and then we could start doing our terracing work and everything to tie into our intake bay. So when we talk about an intake bay, it's not as simple in most situations where you just come in and dig a pit. There's usually a lot of other extraneous work that needs to happen in and around the site in order to pull it off and to make it function properly, as well as look right for the property. Weather hasn't been great. We got hit with a bunch of rain yesterday. Otherwise, I would have probably brought my camera out because I was afraid of getting it all wet. But I want to show you some of the stonework that we've done up to this point. We have our big basin over here, 60 aqua blocks. We have our 2 pump vaults. We got all of that stone in here. We filled this up with water because we were getting a lot of rain. It was filling up on its own. But the other reason we did that, we wanted to equalize the pressure. So whenever we're working on a natural pond like this, we had all this water pressure on one side, pushing against this earthen dam right here. This little area was getting really soft and mucky. So I was a little concerned about this eventually pushing its way in. If that happened, it would have pushed all of this muck in the mud into here. It would have made a mess. So we short-circuited the system. We filled this up with water. Now we have water pressure on both sides to kind of stabilize everything. This is still saturated, but it's not gonna move on us now. Check out all of our stonework. Everything is really coming together. We still got a bunch of little joints and stuff like that to fill in, but this is really turning into a really cool rock face here. Kevin right now is digging out a little bit more section over on this side just to put in some more rock. Now when you look at this, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a heck of a lot of work. But the slope that we had, you know, I didn't want to have the intake here, but it was the best place for it. And it's just because we have this huge slope. I mean, if you look around this property, it's all sloping down. This is a retention area. In this type of a situation, you got these big walls to deal with. So once we cut in and we started making a level area, now we exposed a 7 to 8 foot high wall of soil. So we got to do something with that. I would have loved to have been able to kind of terrace this a little bit further, but our challenge here is we have a walkway that's going all the way around the entire perimeter of the property. That's for his grandkids to come in here on their 4-wheelers, bicycles and things like that, so they have access all the way around the pond. We couldn't push this wall further back because we have to have that walkway, and on top of that we want to have a buffer. We're going to have some plantings and things literally right where that machine is sitting. If the kids are driving their bikes and stuff there, they're going to have a barrier in between this big stone wall. But this honestly is a huge playground for kids. Kyle's over here right now. He's been climbing up and down these rocks and everything. So we have a lot lower, easier entry here. But this just big rock face just begs you to come in there and climb around all that stuff. Some of the things that we're going to do to dress this up is all this crushed stone that we put in here for structural purposes to hold everything in place. I'm going to come in, I'm going to dig some of that material out. We're going to put in some clear graded river rock, so a little bit more decorative, smooth stone, but you can see where our water level's at. This is going to be the normal water level inside of this system. That gravel bed is just above the water level. So we'll dig that out, put in that smooth river stone. We'll be able to plant some different types of aquatic vegetation in here. That'll help soften this up. Now the next tier up, that's gonna be dry. We'll dig some of that crushed stone out. We'll put in a geotextile fabric. That fabric will hold soil in place without letting it leach down into that gravel. Then we'll be able to put in some other types of terrestrial planting. I love stonework, but I also love when it has stuff growing on it, in, around it, softening it. It's gonna totally transform this entire area. Now this section back here, we will not be able to really plant that. It's just a little bit too steep, at least this section. Now, once we get up a little bit higher, so again, we got a crushed rock in here. We'll be pulling that out, getting river rock in there. This pocket here is for a key species of plant. I don't exactly know what, but we're gonna wanna get something decorative here. I love the look of this rock. I would also like to see some stuff kind of cascading over some of these rocks, really softening it up and giving it that aesthetic look that we're going for. So our next steps right now, we're gonna keep working our way this way to stabilize this whole hillside, which is very important. Then our next step, once we're done with that, is we're gonna switch gears, move over to this side, and start cutting into that soil. Again, look how steep that is. At this massive hillside. I don't really like the look of that, so I don't want another big stone wall wrapping this around. What we want to have here is we're going to layer in a series of terraces, nice and smooth, come in with some decorative plantings, some nice more annual beds and things like that to really add bolt of color along that back side. So as people are looking from the office space, from all these other terraces, from the beach, which we're going to completely redo. He said they are always out in this area. They're paddle boarding. Kids are swimming in here. I want to rip this entire wall out 10 to 15 feet into the water, have the top of those rocks actually submerged. Then we could bring that beach right into the water. So this is going to be a big gathering area for all the kids. So I want them to look across, see beautiful stonework, see the intake bay, but actually make it look like something. So all that vegetation over here on the back will really soften that up. Wrapping up for the day, pulling all the tools and equipment out. Did rain on us again a little bit today. Pond is looking really nice over here. I'm really happy with the way this intake bay is turning out. We still have a lot of detail work obviously to do. Right here you can see some fabric kind of floating up. We just put that in there, keep the mud down from getting inside of our aqua blocks until we're done. Pumps are sitting down inside of our pump vaults. That's going to take the water and it's going to discharge it to a series of decorative pieces up on the top, waterfalls and things like that. Big long stream is going to wrap its way all the way down through everything. This whole area. So this massive construction project over in this section was done just to house this and tie it all together. We don't want all this rock work all the way up here in the stream and then that's it. We want to have pockets of this nice stonework in different areas because it'll look more naturalistic. We have a lot of grade change here. There's a swimming pool up there. I mean, there's millions of pounds of material sitting up there. We have to hold all that stuff back. Now, most of that pressure obviously is going down, but there's always a creep. What nature is doing is it wants to take hills and flatten them. Rainwater is going to slowly erode it away. The weight of the material itself, everything kind of creeps in and it pushes things. So when you have an excavation done, it's going to want to collapse on itself. So what we did was we created a structural system starting with the aqua blocks on the very, very bottom as a structural component that works under compression. The tighter we compact those things, the stronger they hold. So all the weight's actually being transferred down to those aqua blocks, if you could imagine that. So that's why we came in, we have aqua blocks, we have geogrids, we have crushed stone, we have all these boulders and they all lock in on one another. This is what that looks like. A series of these flat rocks down on the bottom. All of our rocks are recessed below the top of these flat rocks. So they're dropping down and then they're pushing against one another. So that big anchor stone, that thing weighs 5,000 plus pounds. That rock behind it, as you can see, it's behind it. It's actually bearing on that rock and then this one. So these two anchor stones are actually holding this entire central structure in place. Then on top of that, we have these other big rocks, but they're all transferring the load all the way down. So we're always thinking of things not only from an aesthetic standpoint, but also from an engineering standpoint. So when I talk about STEM or STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math, all those different things have to come together. We have to understand the loads. We have to understand the weights. We have to understand the artistry that it takes to make it look right. We have to understand the biomimicry techniques to actually mimic natural aquatic ecosystems where we have good high water quality. So all these different things are coming together to create some really cool things over here. Brent and his guys, actually, they're up there discussing some stuff right now as I speak. They're coming up with the game plan for next week when I'm not here, which is going to be working on that other side over there. Project won't be done for probably another 4 to 6 weeks. Stay tuned. This is going to be a cool project.